So many other drivers. In fact, here is the starting grid, and it will scroll across the bottom portion of your screen. As Blake mentioned, for the second year in a row, Brendan Butterbean Queen, the pole sitter, and Brent Cruz for the second time this season, lining up on the outside of the front row there in second spot.
Again, Queen, the only driver to get down in the 15.8 second bracket. As we look further on back, Cade Brown out of Full Shear, Texas, has had a fast race car all weekend, and Bobby McCarty, smooth and composed like we always know him to be. He's going to be a threat tonight, along with Mini Tyrell, who nearly, I think, could go to victory lane tonight. Carson Quapple as well, looking to get back after his deficit in the championship, missing that race at Hickory.
Second race in a row, Bryce Applegate with a very good qualifying effort. Ronnie Bassett Jr. came within one corner of winning this race 1 year ago. Canada's Trayton Lapsevich and Connor Hall, two NASCAR champions from last year in different series, making up row number 5. And of course, Ryan Millington, who finally got that elusive top 5 finish at Hickory last time out. And Buddy Iles Jr. from Mike Darn Racing, trying to keep the momentum rolling.
Certainly is, as he adapts from dirt racing over to asphalt racing. Wonder how that translates here. As you can see, Raymond Lewis, the number 62 Ford, Chad McCumbee, two drivers that have shown awfully well, running up at the top 5 in each of our opening races, as well as some drivers I think we could see race their way through the field, and Andrew Grady, Isabella Robusto. Great to see her back on the racetrack. It was 1 year to this day her last appearance in a late model stock.
Remarkable storyline there. Logan Clark led 47 of his career laps in this race 1 year ago, and Deke McCaskill making career start number 99. And of course, Dale Earnhardt Jr. inside of row number 11 with reigning track champion Paul Williamson, who had the crowd on their feet in driver intros alongside.
Remember, Williamson pre-race was saying, it'd be really cool if I'd get to race side by side with Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's going to start side by side with the NASCAR Hall of Famer, as Katie Hettinger will make up the back end of row 13 and round out our 25 car field. But before we get going, let's turn things down to James Pike one more time.
Blake, we've talked all day about the SC2 compound, but I still have a few more notes on it before we go green flag racing. Yes, it's a little bit harder compound than the F45s we race on here in September, and the difference I've heard amongst the pit raid and the garage is that it's a matter of heat wear versus slip wear. The track, or the tire, the F45 sort of melts into the track a little bit more. This tire sits on top of the track a little bit more. You can sort of melt it with the way you drive last year. This year you could be riding more on top of the track, but if you slip it too much, it'll retain heat too, so it may not cool down. If you really wear these things out and get them hot, it's going to be really hard to get that grip back. Also, keep an eye on wheel spin, on restarts, especially with the cooler temperatures in the air. Don't think we can rule out the possibility that some drivers may have some issues getting back up to speed.
It's a great point there, James. Heck, we saw it in the street stock race a little bit earlier on with Keelan Harvick was trying to make sure that he got through the gears cleanly, and that's something that's a lot easier said than done with the unique shape of this tri-oval, you could really call it, at New River All-American Speedway. You saw just scrolling across your screen a moment ago, that was Brandon Pierce, who went down to the pit lane, kind of reminiscent of what we saw with Chad McCumbee last week, but he has since gotten back out on the racetrack and joined the field. Also of note, we called Cody Dempster, restarted the 18th position. He will start at the tail end of the field. Unapproved adjustments for that number 24 of Cody Dempster. By the way, he raced all the way through the field at Hickory last night. We'll see if he can do it again. The 113th race of the ZMAX Cars Tour, presented by Sound Gear, is set to go here in Jacksonville, North Carolina, as Jim Bushy will bring the HendrickCars.com pace car down, and into the Death Wish Coffee start zone comes Brendan Queen, and we are racing for 125 laps here at New River. Queen jumps out, leads the opening pair of laps, and you can really see, especially off of turn 2, he got a huge lead. You have to wonder in the back of his mind, is he thinking maybe I got a little bit too far out there? He backs his pace down a little bit the second lap, and you can see everybody trying to lift and now find their way down to the bottom of the racetrack.
Brent Cruz using that top line to his advantage to be able to fend off Cade Brown for the second spot. That is until they get back to turn number 1. Look at Bobby McCarty thinking about perhaps trying to fill the void that separates the 23 of Brown and the 29 of Brent Cruz respectively, as now Mini Tyrell tries to poke his nose in the white 81 up the inside. Thinks better of it.
Cruz still hanging tough on the outside line. You can see how much momentum he's able to carry off that end of the racetrack. Now again, if you were watching film of this race from a year ago, you saw some cars jump up to the outside and they were able to almost at will pass these long line of cars down on the bottom of the racetrack. And if you're watching qualifying a little bit earlier, this is going to be a little bit different, at least in the terms of the beginning portion of this race. Everybody kind of wrapping the bottom right now. And the thinking here is, Eric, you don't want to turn. You want to stay off the throttle. You want to try to make this radius as short as possible. Now in qualifying, you'll see everybody tracking up off the corner and doing all those things, but the thinking here is early on, you want to keep that tire heat in check. You want to do it by these low exits that we see from everybody but Cruz and McCarty, who haven't found their way down to the bottom yet.
Throughout pretty much the entire field, with the exception of a two-car battle at the very tail end of the pack, every car is committed to the bottom except for Brett Cruz in the 29 and Bobby McCarty in the 6. Cruz now trying to get that top line to roll to maybe put him in command of this race in that Mobil 1 Toyota, with McCarty right there nudging the back bumper.
You mentioned spotter communication and how important that was going to be. And New River is such a unique racetrack, because you kind of saw it out of Cade Brown there for just a moment, that when everybody's kind of riding single file on the bottom, it can be somewhat deceiving when you try to build up a run. You get a little bit harder in that throttle, you carry that momentum, and you try to make a pass. Kind of plays off of what we were talking about earlier with spotter communication, that being on your toes as a spotter is going to be something that you have to do. As he almost got to call Brett Cruz 3 wide with Bobby McCarty.
Yeah, one thing that Cruz has to watch here is
and there they
go. 2 wide, as McCarty may have cut him a break there, lifting out of the throttle off turn 2 to not make that a precarious spot for the front runners. Cruz is going to lead at the line here. Butterbean also conceding second spot on the front stretch to get McCarty up into the runner-up position now in the 6.
And you can see that concerted effort from McCarty, who thought, this is my opportunity to get down to the bottom of the racetrack. Throttles up a little bit harder than Brendan Queen. You can see the momentum he carries. So Brett Cruz, first lead change we've seen so far tonight at New River. McCarty wrapping the inside, that red, white, and blue painting that you see here on the inside. They are all just about touching the left side doors of these late model stocks. We've completed 10 laps, more side-by-side that's happening further back in the pack. That's Carson Quapple, his Bass Pro Shop Chevrolet, trying to fend off a couple of drivers, and Bryce Applegate and Ryan Millington.
Battle for third starting to heat up just a little bit there, as Mini Tyrell has moved up into the third position as things start to jam up a little bit there on the bottom, as McCarty now gets a fender inside of Cruz for the top spot in 1.
Cruz gives him the space, but that's what we were talking about earlier, that you'll see these cars going all the way down to the grass to complete that pass, and Cruz almost got in the back of McCarty there. So third lead change. Tyrell almost looked for second. 112 laps to go. New leader at the front of the field. It is the 6 of Bobby McCarty.
And you see how aggressively Cruz tried to cut back down in the tri-oval last time through to try to cover the spot and not allow Tyrell a chance to get up to and alongside. This is the battle for the runner-up position behind that of Bobby McCarty, who is now our third different leader on the night. As Mini Tyrell runs there in the third spot, looking to try to move up to second.
These three, a couple of car lengths ahead of this battle that is taking place behind them. You can see Quapple starting to back up, and listening to a lot of the conversations, Brandon Pierce, Dylan Wilson talked a lot about it on their Big Time Auto Racing podcast earlier this week. If you look back at some of the races that we've had here, you almost see kind of a separation of packs that happen, and we're going to see it right here in this side-by-side. You see Bobby McCarty up front, Quapple, Millington, Bassett, a couple of those drivers that are just hanging on to the race lead, but we've seen a fair contingent of cars, Eric, about 10 or 12 or so, pretty much the entire back half of the field, that has kind of taken that more conservative approach, and as far as the pace backing down, has really begun to do it. And in terms of lap times, again, 15.8 was Brendan Queen's pole time for the Thunder Road Harley-Davidson Pole Award. Bobby McCarty, your race leader last time, 17.405, a second and a half nearly off, but not quite as much as 2 seconds as we've seen here in the past.
I think you're going to see drivers fall into two buckets, if you will. One that thinks that now is the time to go. The other that thinks they need to conserve. I put Ryan Millington in the bucket of those that want to start moving forward. Carson Quapple in the bucket of those that is trying to conserve just a little bit. As now Tyrell gets moved up off the bottom. Here's the battle for third on the front straightaway. Cade Brown is going to pick up that spot. Bryce Applegate starting to move further forward with the aforementioned Millington.
104 laps to go. Again, we talked about the difference in strategy. Right now, Brendan Queen, he was your pole sitter. He is ninth, nearly 2.5 seconds behind the race leader as things run right now. So that really tells you the difference in terms of where drivers are running and what their approach is to this race, which, again, we don't know if that's going to work quite as well as it did in the past with this new ST2 tire. So many of the drivers were, I don't want to say confused, but unsure of exactly how this race was going to play out, if you were going to see these drivers who were riding in line saving, if that's going to be the way to go. I do know, though, looking out on the racetrack, it's a little bit of a difference of what we saw a year ago. Logan Clark, remember, he led 47 laps here last season. He is the last driver on the racetrack right now. So you can see that he may have learned a lesson or so from when we were here last fall, as we can see a side-by-side battle for second. Cade Brown on the 23, and Brent Cruz, who may not put up much of a fight there on the outside, with now 100 laps to go.
Good news for Adam Cruz is he does have a little bit of room, maybe not much, as they come off turn 2 to try to cover the spot. Now he's fallen back to third, and he will nestle himself there between that of Cade Brown and Mini Tyrell, who continues to run in the top 5 spot, with Brown now lurking all over the backside of McCarty for the race lead, as we see one driver who has elected to kick things into high gear, and that is Landon Huffman, who started hang out back in 24th spot. Huffman is up into the top 10 and looking to get around Carson Quapple for 8th.
Talked about the difference in scenery for Landon Huffman coming into 2024. I heard him talking on Thursday before coming down to practice on Friday. He arrived with 3 team members to practice yesterday. It was he, his father, and one other crew member on that race car. As we could see a new race leader, 4th one we've had so far tonight with 98 laps to go. 23 of Cade Brown, looking awfully strong up front. But, you know, if you watch Landon Huffman's blog on his YouTube channel last year, he kind of employed this same strategy of going up and trying to pass a couple of cars, going high, going low. Found himself in the top 5 in that race before eventually selling for 16th in his start for Nelson Motorsports a year ago.
And while we see a little bit of shuffling amongst the front runners, that's opening the door for the top line to start rolling. Bryce Applegate in the 45, outside of Ryan Millington in the 15, Landon Huffman to join, and now it is McCarty who is trying to conserve a little bit on the bottom, and here comes Tyrell trying to jump up outside, nearly 3 wide for third, as we are now double wide, 3 rows back with Tyrell trying to go to the point on the back straightaway.
What a move by Tyrell, and you can see it's a conscious decision to try and go up towards the front. You can see a little bit of damage just on the nose of that number 81 car, but then we have a 5th lead change at New River All-American already tonight, side by side for the race lead. A couple of car lengths clear of Bobby McCarty in 3rd, and indeed we do. Mini Tyrell, the number 81, leads his first lap since Florence Motor Speedway a year ago.
Earlier on today in the drivers' meeting, Mini Tyrell, along with his father, family, and race team, were present to acknowledge the drivers and teams that they are going to exercise what has been a much publicized philanthropic effort for that of Tyrell throughout his racing tenure at Dominion Raceway on June 15th. Every driver and team is on board to support him there as they welcome several families who find themselves under circumstances in which they could use a bit of assistance while navigating through tough times. And Tyrell, who has been very proud to host those families, not just at Dominion, but even a few in which he's welcomed back here to New River tonight, and he would love nothing more than to take a trophy home with him, as Landon Huffman is up to 2nd.
Huffman was 0.7 of a second faster than the last lap run by Mini Tyrell. Huffman, you can see how much he is wheeling it off the corner as Tyrell has a pretty comfortable lead. It's nearly up to half a straightaway right now, but Landon Huffman looking to take his 37 High Rock Vodka Chevy, and he's going to go right to the point. Huffman in the 3 and 4, 6th lead change of the night in 35 laps. Landon Huffman now at the point at New River.
Is this New River or is this Talladega with the way in which these drivers are coming and going? This is remarkable. Talking to Landon's spotter, Charlie Brown, he said, hey, if some drivers are going to ride, we're going to go. That has been their game plan, and they are executing
I believe him.
In the biggest way. Looks as though Chad McCumbee may be on that same game plan. He started 14th and is up into the top 5 for the first time tonight, and he's not done yet, working over Cade Brown in the 23.
Well, and again, at least looking at the scoring charts, it looks like, Huffman's 4/10, 5/10, 6/10 faster than a lot of these drivers out here. Again, we're not too far away from what would be the first Shitty Coolers competition caution of the evening. But Huffman at this pace, if he keeps it up, there are a couple drivers in the back of the field. All it takes is one to kind of set that pace a little bit faster, and everybody's going to have to respond because they don't want to go a lap down.
End up with a bit of a roadblock, like what Bobby McCarty finds himself in here. Now he's kind of trapped behind the side-by-side cars of Ryan Millington and that of Chad McCumbee as they continue to fight for positions up in the top 5. Bryce Applegate still having a very strong showing there in 4th in the 45. As it is all Landon Huffman who has checked out the biggest lead we've seen anybody have all night. This is 3rd on back between Gabe Brown and a hornet's nest.
Bryce Applegate, we mentioned some of the strong starts that he has had already as he came out east again from Colorado to be able to compete in the late model stocks. Again, was looking at some of the designs they have for the 24 t-shirts that I'm sure many fans out here at the racetrack over the course of the Fan Fest and the autograph signing that we had here perhaps took a noting of is that, well, we're coming out east. Is that of Cody Dempster, but Bryce Applegate right now in the 45 out of Simpsonville, Kentucky. What an impressive performance that he has put on early in this race. Is 3 wide in 1 and 2. McCumbee on the top side, Grady and McCarty, 3 drivers who have been around this series for an awfully long time. And McCarty trying to make his way by Carson Quapple, who's just kind of been patient like you would imagine Quapple to be.
And Andrew Grady is a name that we have not mentioned here tonight so far. He too is up into the top 10 after 2 races, one of which that destroyed his TG Motorsports race car at Southern National Motorsports Park. He is desperately trying to right the ship after showing so much pace to start this season. Maybe tonight is the night in which it all comes together for he and that operation as they've been working so hard. But nobody has worked harder so far in this race than that of Landon Huffman, who has charged from nearly the back of the field up to the race lead and walking away with a potential competition caution coming at the end of this lap.
As it would stand now, no driver is going to go a lap down. They've all stayed on the lead lap, and indeed we will see the first shitty coolers caution of the evening after 45 consecutive green flag laps. They'll come out for the first time, which, you know, historically has not been a race in which we've seen a lot of early yellows with some of the differing strategy going on, but Landon Huffman in that High Rock Vodka Chevrolet getting some good TV time out here at New River All-American Speedway tonight. He's first, Cade Brown second, Tyrell just got edged out by that number 23 for the second position just before that caution flag came out.
You heard Chad McCumbee mention in his pre-race interview you're going to have some comers and goers. He was not kidding. It has been remarkable to watch some of these drivers drive up through the pack with Huffman being the leader as things stand. Again, if you're new to ZMAX Car Store competition presented by Sound Gear, 45 laps is the window before we have a shitty coolers competition caution. We will not have one within the final 50 should the race stay green.
80 laps to go. Let's catch our breath. We'll be right back. The ZMAX Cars Tour presented by Sound Gear from New River All-American Speedway on FloRacing.
Want an easy way to help take care of your vehicle? ZMAX Micro Lubricant. ZMAX Micro Lubricant is a DIY solution that pours into your fuel and oil. ZMAX proprietary molecules are uniquely small, so they literally soak into the metal, dispersing harmful carbon deposits. This improves horsepower, extends engine life, and reduces emissions. ZMAX is good for your car, your wallet, and the environment. Can be used in new or used vehicles. Available at zmax.com or your local auto parts store.
Hendrick. It's the perfect time to find an affordable vehicle. Visit HendrickCars.com and shop our large selection, including over 1,000 vehicles priced under 20 grand. Plus, drive today, but pay later with our payment deferral and 0 down options. Buy from the name you know and trust. Hendrick has received over 650,000 5-star online reviews. Over 1,000 vehicles under 20 grand. Find yours at HendrickCars.com.
It's time to double down. It's time to raise the stakes. And it is time to go all in with Kubota High Limit Racing. This is the High Limit Room. It's the home of 24 high rollers.
Welcome back to New River All-American Speedway. Let's take a look at some of the biggest upcoming events streaming live on FloRacing. The Kubota High Limit Racing heads to Red Dirt April 16th, followed by stops at Southern Oklahoma and Salina the 19th and 20th. Straight line action with the PDRA Mid-Atlantic Showdown April 18th through 20th at Virginia Motorsports Park. Our next stop for the ZMAX Cars Tour, don't have to wait much longer, April 20th, next Saturday, Orange County Speedway. Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series has 3 races in a row, Georgetown, Hagerstown, and Port Royal, April 26th through 28th. Kokomo Speedway with the USAC Kokomo Grand Prix, April 26th through 27th. For more information and a full schedule of details, floracing.com/events.
80 laps to go here at New River All-American Speedway. The HendrickCars.com pace car down in the pit area. And through the Death Wish coffee restart zone, Landon Huffman gets us back underway with 80 laps to go. We're back underway at New River All-American Speedway, and very quickly off the jump, Huffman trying to scurry away from the rest of the field. Tyrell able to get the best of that battle for second, and already Quapple, who chose on the outside, very quickly up in the third position.
And now you know some of the drivers who their game plan was to push hard and push hard early. They're on your screen right now in that top 2 of Landon Huffman and Minnie Tyrell. Now Carson Quapple played it relatively conservative at the start of the race. The question is, what is going to be the right move, and will there be a time in which those top 2 cars start to fall off? It hasn't happened thus far as your pole sitter, Brendan Butterbean Queen, second car to the outside of the one of Andrew Grady, trying to make some ground back up after he took it easy on the start after leading the opening few laps.
And this is what we were looking forward to all night. Everybody said it's about 40, 50 laps to go that you want to start pushing. But look at Andrew Grady. Look at Queen, who fell all the way back tonight, several seconds off the leader. We know he's one of the more conservative drivers when it's come to these abrasive racetracks, but this is where you start to see the strategy play out, where in this second stint, you are going to see drivers pushing much harder than I think you would have in years past. You can see that already with Andrew Grady up at the front, trying to make moves on the top side, get up into the top 5. And he's going to get his way by Carson Quapple here before too long.
We joke due to the number of lead changes. This reminds you a little bit of a super speedway race, if you will, and the same methodology and ideology applies to that of the way in which the lanes of these drivers are choosing and developing. If you're stuck to the bottom of the racetrack, you can end up kind of being pinned there while cars start to blow by you on the outside if they elect to try to find an opportunity to go up and get by, like what Connor Hall is doing right now to that of Carson Quapple, towing Bobby McCarty along with him.
Get a little bit of smoke there. If I had to guess, it was coming out of the 8 car through the last couple of corners. We'll see how that unfolds. Queen is able to make up a handful of spots there on the outside, and Connor Hall pretty much doing the same thing. Track position looking to be awfully important tonight at New River All-American Speedway. Landon Huffman continues to set the pace in this field. Grady, as we mentioned, up into the top 5. He hasn't led in Cars Tour competition since this race 2 years ago. And now Connor Hall side by side trying to make up another spot, and he wants the 4th position for himself.
Paul mentioned this place very special to him, as this is where he earned his first career ZMAX Cars Tour win back in 2022. He also comes into tonight's contest as the points leader. The driver chasing him in the championship standings, Minnie Tyrell, running in second. That's something that Hall is certainly abreast of as he starts to make up some ground on the top side, rolling up to the outside of Brendan Butterbean Queen in what could be a fight for third.
Puts the throttle down and looks like he's just going to be able to get clear almost, but not quite enough. Almost a bump and a nudge from Andrew Grady through turns 3 and 4, and Connor Hall indeed able to do it through the tri-oval here at New River All-American. He gets down and into the 4th position. Now Bobby McCarty trying to get up into the top 5. He'll make the same move on both Andrew Grady and may try the same here on Connor Hall.
Grady working that low side there of McCarty, while Hall has now moved down to the inside behind that of Brendan Butterbean Queen, with McCarty still trying to make something happen on the top side. But how about that of Landon Huffman? Started the season off with an unfortunate DNQ at Southern National Motorsports Park, so they found something fundamentally wrong with the race car that put them behind the 8 ball. A top 15 at the track in which he won a track championship was just what the doctor ordered, and they came into tonight's race with a set game plan in mind, and they have executed so far to perfection. And although we are only about 60 laps into this race, there has been no sign of fade out of that race car, despite him pushing since the green.
We talked about race pace a little bit earlier, and a lot of the leaders in that opening stint were running 17.8, 17.9s. Well, Huffman in the 17.0s, the rest of the field still about 3 or 4 tenths faster than what we saw taking place at the beginning of the race. So overall, this field either trying to get their own track position or responding to what Landon Huffman is doing up front. We're nearly halfway through this race. Huffman has led a ton. Contact with Millington and Applegate. Looks like Millington doesn't get any worse for the wear. It just bends up that quarter panel a little bit into turns 3 and 4. But Millington right now able to clear and has the opportunity to get down to the bottom side if he wants it. You can see the brake rotor glowing on that number 45 car as well.
Millington, someone who comes into the ninth in the championship point standings, rebounded after a late race spin in this race 1 year ago. As we take a look at the differential between first and second as we come up to the iRacing halfway point. Maybe that halfway money was something in which this team circled on their agenda for the day, and they've got it as Huffman leads at the cross flags.
Still setting a blistering pace up front. Huffman in the 17.1s. Mini Tyrell that last time, he was the fastest car on the racetrack, got into the 16.9s, nearly his fastest lap that he's run out here tonight. But past that halfway point, Huffman has the iRacing halfway lap leader award, and again, he has led a ton of laps here tonight. More, in fact, I believe than he has in his entire Cars Tour career. Yes, it was 9 laps that he's led prior in the ZMAX Cars Tour presented by Sound Gear. Of course, he got his win at Tri-County Speedway with Nelson Motorsports in the Old North State Nationals, $30,000 a year ago, and he's trying to better that tonight to capture his second career win. Now Millington, somebody else that started to make his way up towards the front of the field.
Millington not done in terms of trying to get back up the running order. Now inside of Cade Brown, while Carson Quapple starts to tussle with Andrew Grady in the 1, and Quapple gets a good drive off the corner. Grady now protects the bottom side with Millington drawing up to the number of the 23 of Cade Brown, who keeps the momentum rolling up top. Millington thought about going 3 wide, thinks better of it, slides back in line behind that of Andrew Grady, who is going to perhaps concede the position there, that's 7th, but he just lost to Cade Brown with Millington almost giving a nudge to the back bumper.
Again, amazing the precision that these drivers have as they are sliding around on those tires to lean right up and onto these race cars, but not do any further damage. As finally a change for the race lead with 57 laps to go. Second time we've called this name up front, but Mini Tyrell up to the point here at New River All-American Speedway, and Queen is on the charge, catching your top 2 as well.
Mini Tyrell, the 2019 Cars Tour Rookie of the Year, who has been off to an incredible start. We mentioned second in the points after coming back from several laps down at Hickory, while also scoring a really good finishing position at Southern National, which was a 7th. He's now going to have in his rearview mirror the pole sitter of this race and defending race winner in that of Brendan Butterbean Queen, and Bobby McCarty is starting to float up towards the front as he looks to the inside of Landon Huffman at turn 1 for 3rd.
I think you're seeing the flip side of this strategy that Huffman employed, wanted to get out front and try to get as much track position as possible, but unfortunately may have lost a lot of the tread on that Hoosier ST2s that he has underneath his race car, and right now he is free falling through the field. Back to 5th as Quapple makes his way by and slowly creeping his way up towards the front of the field here, Eric. Dale Earnhardt Jr., very reminiscent of what we saw in the Icebreaker earlier on this year. Qualified about mid-pack and slowly started making his way forward. But Jr. right now, 15th running with 52 laps to go, has spent a majority of this race 20th on back. He's one of the 3 or 4 drivers that really dropped anchor at the beginning of this race, but hoping he has something for them a little bit later on.
And there's still plenty of time for Junior to get going. A little bit less than half of this race still to go, as it'll be 15 laps remaining next time by, and we will be potentially about 15 laps away from what would be our second and final Shinny Cruise competition caution that will come at the conclusion of lap 90, as Tyrell continues to lead. Queen and McCarty, your top 3. Carson Quapple 4th. Connor Hall, your top 5.
As far as the pace that Huffman had, we mentioned how fast he was going a little bit earlier on, and that is not that Huffman has really slowed down. In fact, he's still running close to the lap times he was up at the front of the field, kind of in the lower 17s. It's that the rest of the field, Eric, has started to pick up the pace, getting down in the 16-second bracket, so ran off his tires, but again, tried to jump out up front early, but he's going to have his hands full for the rest of the night as a result.
You talk about tire degradation, the way in which these tires wear. One of the other questions is that plateau for when you push too far, is it pretty much the same across the group, across the entire field? Will it kind of equalize the playing field a little bit? I think we've seen some of the remnants of Huffman pushing hard at the beginning starting to show itself here, but the question remains is when the rest of the field starts to experience similar fall off, kind of level out a little bit for Huffman to get a chance to climb back further forward as how the top four start to knot together again, with now McCarty pressuring Brendan Butterbean Queen for second on the backstretch. And a problem for Ronnie Bassett Jr., the driver who almost won this race 1 year ago, into the pit area with a problem, and the caution flag will fly here at lap number 79. We believe it may be perhaps something that may have come undone with Ronnie Bassett Jr.'s machine.
And again, Bassett was fast yesterday in practice, but experienced a couple of issues. Had a fuel pump issue early on in practice, and then a carburetor issue that kind of sidelined them for the later portion of practice, but was one of the fastest cars. In fact, it was. He was the fastest car in second practice yesterday. You can see they have gone under the hood on that 04 car. Just a tough luck, tough start to 2024 for Ronnie Bassett Jr.
Earlier in the week, Brandon White, who was one of the writers for that of NASCAR.com, put together a fantastic story on Ronnie and his family and how they transitioned from at one point owning and operating a NASCAR Xfinity Series team to going full-time into late model stock cars. For Ronnie, he said it would be an absolute dream come true for him to be able to share a moment with his kids and wife in Cars Toward Victory Lane. Right now, they continue to work. We'll be back with 47 to go from New River.
Hand out the window, but you can see a little bit of damage on the left front fender. In fact, he's missing some body work as that number 45 Louisville Dryer Company Chevrolet of Bryce Applegate. Some of the damage and remnants of what's left of that race car, but for more, let's head down trackside with James Pike.
It took us a little while to figure out what was the issue with Ronnie Bassett Jr.'s machine, but he tried to fire up the motor, and the belts on the front of the motor would not turn, and his crew immediately told him to shut the motor off, and then they reached in, and they pulled a broken belt out. So a belt issue on the motor of Ronnie Bassett is ultimately what has put him out of this race. They looked at the alternator a little bit too, but belt issues, the issue that will keep Ronnie Bassett from posting a second consecutive podium finish here at New River All-American Speedway.
Tough end of the night for Ronnie Bassett Jr. Talked to him earlier on this morning, and he was very optimistic about what they had coming into this race. Felt really good, particularly once you get in race trim about what they felt they had for tonight. You also saw getting off of pit lane, saw a little bit of work being done for the 29 of Brent Cruz, who started up towards the front of the field. As you see the choose and the results of it. And I imagine here, Eric, a lot of cars. Seems like that outside lane not all too bad here if you want to try to push and gain some track position.
The outside lane appears to be the bit of the option lane if you decide, hey, I want to start making some passes now. Eventually, it's not going to be that easy as this race draws closer to its conclusion. I want to point something out, though. We have been harping on the fact that there are a lot of people who have come out to New River All-American Speedway to watch tonight's race. I'll credit Matt Weaver, who's actually a couple of suites down from us, doing his normal short track diligence in terms of providing race fans with coverage and content they cannot get elsewhere. And this is per Matt Weaver about a few minutes ago. It is a complete sellout for the Cars Tour here at New River All-American Speedway. The track had to shut the gates. We estimate there are about 15,000 people here on the track property watching how the rest of these 47 laps are going to roll.
Man, what a night. Heck, it was such a night. I saw Matt Weaver getting interviewed earlier tonight. Andy Marquis brought the mic up to him, and he was on the flip side of it. It was a little bit different. Lights are off on the HendrickCars.com pace car. Jim Bushy will bring it down into the pit area. Minnie Tyrell, Brendan Queen, your top two into the Death Wish Coffee restart zone. 47 laps to settle it at New River. Queen not going to try to waste any time. He'll go up to the top side, but for now, he'll dive back in line in second. McCarty settles for third for the moment. Connor Hall, Carson Quapple side by side as the Bass Pro Shops Chevrolet looks awfully fast into turn 3.
Ryan Millington just behind in the black 15. Chad McCombie, we heard from Pay Racing. First time we mentioned Landon Lewis up to the top 10 here today. Fresh off what was his Cars Tour debut last week, and we got a crash. Turn 4, one car got spun, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. had to stop to avoid, and there is some damage to the front end of Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s 3 car. And I believe one of the cars that went around first was that of our early race leader and halfway leader in that of Landon Huffman off turn 4.
And just got a piece of it. Don't believe he made hard contact, but you can see the damage that is done. The number 3 Bass Pro Shop Chevrolet. You can imagine that he's going to make that left-hand turn. In fact, no, he'll stay out on the racetrack for now. Huffman, rather, will be the car that brings it in. Again, Junior had made his way. You could see on the scoring pylon before the caution flag came out. They were running about 12th and 13th or so. Junior had made up a couple of spots in that choose, electing to go to the inside lane. Now Huffman will bring that car down, I'm sure, for some adjustments.
Initial vantage point for what we could see was that perhaps most of the damage was right behind the left front tire. Now we'll get a close-up look at it here. The question is, if that front tire and front end received a brunt of that impact, it could be game over for that of Landon Huffman, as Brent Cruz is going to take this opportunity to come back into the pit area as they too will start to perform some work on that car. But there is some pretty significant damage there on Landon Huffman's car. Let's get an update from Pike.
And this is all the tricky side for those of you watching the grandstands, because all the damage here is right behind the left front wheel. So a lot of the focus is just on making sure that that tire is clear of the fender, and that if he goes back out onto the racetrack, it doesn't rub at full speed. So you can see them working on the fender just behind that left front tire to try and pull it out and make sure that it doesn't cut down the left front and cause even more problems for Landon Huffman. Beyond that, not too much work being done around the rest of the car. Don't think there's any suspension damage that the crew can see, so all focus there, just trying to pull that fender out, make sure he's okay, get him back out on the racetrack.
All right, we will be able to take a look at what happened, at least from our vantage point up here, or at least at the start-finish line. Caught a piece of what happened there. Look at the 37 car, the High Rock Vodka Chevrolet. This is in turn 3. You can see him enter the right-hand portion of your frame, 3 wide. I believe that's with Bryce Applegate. A little bit of contact. Huffman gets sideways. You can imagine what happens after that. Earnhardt with nowhere to go. Puts on the binders, but not before he runs into the side of Landon Huffman's High Rock Vodka Chevy.
Evidently that Junior Motorsports team doesn't think the damage is enough to force Junior to come down and perhaps have to render service to that race car. As Blake had mentioned, Dale had started to climb his way further forward. The hood is wrinkled a little bit, but perhaps not enough to start to perhaps, I want to say, impact Dale's vision out the windshield of that race car. As the field continues to circulate behind the HendrickCars.com pace car. With 46 laps to go. A quick yellow after our last restart. 46 laps remaining here from New River All-American Speedway. We're right back with Minnie Tyrell out in front.
Under the shitty coolers caution for the third time this evening for an accident involving Bryce Applegate, Landon Huffman, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. 46 laps, just got the green flag a lap ago. As you see the results of the choose taking place here at the very tail end of the field. Is Mini Tyrell. Brendan Queen looks like going to be your top two, the results of the choose. This time around, and we'll put the lights out of the HendrickCars.com pace car with one more trip around before we turn them loose again.
If we were to try to dissect what has been the game plan for the front row right now, I think it's fair to say that Mini Tyrell elected, even though he qualified very well, qualified fifth, he did seem to push a little bit harder at the start of this race and kind of keep with Landon Huffman when he went out there and led all those opening laps, whereas the 03 kind of faded. Now we see the two agendas quite literally lining up side by side with still 46 to go. I guess we're about to see which call was the right call and how much may be left in the tank for that 81 car, Mini Tyrell, who's trying to keep that hot start to the year going.
46 laps could go into the Death Wish Coffee restart zone. Tyrell, Queen launched at the front of the field. Time for saving may very well be over. Side by side, drag race down the back straightaway. They duke it out for the race lead. Queen with the nose in front off the corner. He may have it. It'll be nearly a dead heat at the stripe between Tyrell and Queen.
Queen trying to get the edge as they go down into turn number one. Tyrell with the drive from the center off the corner. It is Queen with a half a car length advantage. Now washing up the racetrack for both cars as they come out of turn number four. Double wide for the race lead. Double wide for third spot. Double wide for fifth as Carson Quapple gets up to the top five, and Queen's got the run off too.
Queen putting the throttle down, and it may just be enough to clear Tyrell into turn three off the corner. Another change for the race lead cements itself as he'll lead each of the last two laps. Brendan Queen back to the point. He dropped all the way back outside of the top 10 at one portion of this race, and he has found his way back to the front. And it wasn't earlier when we were walking down to the pit area with Connor Hall that said, you know, this may just be a classic Connor Hall, Brendan Queen, duke it out. Maybe we're setting up for that as McCarty gets shoved up the hill by Landon Lewis, collects it. They're battling inside the top 10. Race for the lead's not over yet.
How about Tyrell? He just lost the top spot to Butterbean, now gets the fender back to the inside. After Butterbean was able to exercise that second groove, but they both slip off turn two with Bobby McCarty lurking.
Tyrell and McCarty, we know the friendship that they have, how much work that they put in. Again, Mini Tyrell in an RNS race car chassis. Bobby McCarty in the RNS race car house car. And Tyrell, I tell you what, he is not fading at all. He is applying all the pressure he can to Brendan Queen down the front straightaway, who shuts the door all the way down to the grass with 39 to go.
You talk about protecting the bottom. That was protecting the bottom by that of Butterbean. As now Tyrell lunges to the bottom. They touch. Tyrell sideways. Both of them save it as McCarty tries to move up to second.
Tyrell has a little bit of damage. Can he hang on, or will it significantly hurt that race car as it jumped up the nose of his race car? But you know what? Looks all right. He may challenge for McCarty for second, and indeed he does.
The Hoosier lettering is gone on Brendan Butterbean Queen's left rear tire, but it doesn't matter. He holds the lead. McCarty to second. Tyrell to third. Quapple and Hall starting to intensify their fight for fourth.
And all the meanwhile, that has brought up a couple of drivers like Hall, like Quapple. They lost a little bit of time up here at the front of the field. Don't forget about Ryan Millington. Remember the abrasive surface at North Wilkesboro Speedway a year ago? He nearly won that race. He's in a great spot as we take one more look. Late move Tyrell, goes down to the inside. Contact made.
Unbelievable. They survived the contact, but we're not done in the battle for the lead. McCarty to the point. Had the lead by just about a foot or so at the start-finish line, and that's enough to allow Tyrell to get through by the second spot battle for that of Brendan Butterbean Queen.
It has been a couple of weeks of overcoming for Tyrell. He overcame several laps down in Hickory to muster a top 5 finish. He overcomes the contact with Brendan Queen. He'll make the pass, and now he'll set his sights on his good friend and Bobby McCarty. Meanwhile, back in the field, this is Trayton Lapsevich, the 77, Chad McCumbee trying to make their way forward. This would be a battle for the 7th position. Trayton Lapsevich just made the pass on McCumbee to get that spot.
You want some visual evidence as to how hard these drivers are pushing. The entire field has brake rotors glowing on the left and right side of their race cars, some of which right at the start-finish line as they approach turn one, like that of Bobby McCarty. He holds the lead over Tyrell, a stack up behind him for third as Hall is now up to P3. Quapple with him, and that's Ryan Millington to the top 5.
Again, it is go time here at New River All-American Speedway. This battle taking place roughly a second behind the bout between your top two that's continuing to get closer. Quapple has been working on Hall for the last several laps as he almost leans into the left rear quarter panel of that number 22. Millington, meanwhile, watching on by as Tyrell has caught McCarty for the race lead.
Right side of your picture, two drivers who battled for the lead and win at the Icebreaker at Florence earlier off in a non-sanctioned Cars Tour event. They continued that battle at the season opener at Southern National. Now they're battling for third while the top two break free for now with now 29 laps to go. And Mini Tyrell won't go away, so we got a crash. Brendan Butterbean Queen is in the wall. Perhaps the contact between he and Mini Tyrell has done enough damage to that left rear, and he is up against the concrete in 3 and 4. And it is safe to say, Blake, that that tire is of course down. We talked about Brendan saying himself that he felt they were still climbing out of the hole in which he fell into by virtue of the spin at Southern National, backed it up with a second place run at Hickory, and had a really fast race car tonight when battling for the lead went wrong, right where that tire went down a few laps prior.
And again, if he can get that 0-3 moving, there is a rule where they would be allowed to put a separate tire, obviously, on the left rear of that 0-3 Lee Pulliam Performance Toyota to keep Queen out onto the racetrack. And at least by the tire marks that you could see the tire marks that he left out there on the racetrack, an incredible job that he did to slow that car down, clearly as he was kind of out of it with that tire going down. And I gotta say, Queen probably wrestled that car away from more significant damage, reaching the outside wall. He's able to get that car stopped before he did so.
We'll show you what we have of the incident as we saw the contact just a short while ago with he and Mini Tyrell battling for the lead going into turn number 3. Initially, we thought that perhaps both drivers got away with minimal implications from the contact in which they had, which saw Tyrell almost hop over that left rear tire, to which Queen has not been able to drive away from just yet at this time. But evidently that tire did go down in turn number 3 after he lost several spots. Here's a look at it. Take a look at the right side of your screen. He's already lost several positions, and yeah, Blake, that tire's down already.
And that is a scary feeling going into turn 3 at that rate of speed. And again, an incredible job that he did. Tells you a lot about a driver. They have a flat tire going into that corner, and he's able to get that car stopped. Aside from just a flat left rear and any damage that tire may have done to the fender of that race car is not more significant than that. Unfortunately for him, he stopped on the racetrack and likely needs a little bit of help to try and get that car moving down the hill and into the pit area.
At the time in which that tire went down, he had fallen back to the 9th position. So Brendan definitely knew that something was amiss after that contact, after losing the lead and falling further back through the fields, after he worked very hard to make sure he had enough underneath him to try to challenge in the closing chapter of this race.
We take another pause under the Shitty Coolers caution. Queen is the latest culprit, as we'll be back with 30 laps to go here from New River All-American. Rejoining with you here at New River All-American Speedway is the latest Shitty Coolers caution for Brendan Queen. Comes out for a flat left rear tire as he went into turn number 3. He's able to save that race car. They have since moved that race car and are doing some work on it. For more, let's head down to James Pike.
If there's heavy damage to the left rear of Butterbean 03, BestRepair.net Toyota for Lee Pulliam Performance. They just changed the left rear tire, but there was a significant drag and a sort of crab walk that car had, almost as if maybe there might be a track bar issue on Queen's machine. But just with the way he came in, there's more damage than just that tire, and that's what the team's looking at on the right front now, just trying to see if there are any sort of issues here. But the car is definitely out of alignment on the rear end. There's a little bit more skew than there has been over the course of the rest of the day. So yes, they've got the tire fixed. Yes, they'll get it back out there, but potentially more issues for Butterbean.
Again, going to have a long way to climb up. He's not going to lose a lap as we don't count caution laps here at the ZMAX Car Store presented by Sound Gear. He's able to get back out onto the racetrack, but we'll have to do so restarting at the tail end of the field with 30 laps to go. And I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier. He considered his run in the season opening race at Southern National Motorsports Park, finishing in 19th as a hole to climb out of. And unfortunately for him, with how competitive this series has become, having 2 of your first 3 races not go your way, that is something that's going to be pretty tough to climb out of.
And this was a racetrack in which they had circled because this kind of kick-started his run to challenge Carson Kvapil for the championship 1 year ago. But how about the driver who leads this race right now in Bobby McCarty? We mentioned he's a 3-time Cars Tour late model stock champion, but they all came while wheeling the car that's lined up behind him for this upcoming restarts, the Nelson Motorsports number 22. A much publicized move over to the RNS race car house car in 2023, netted his first victory at Dominion in spectacular fashion, but in the offseason wasn't sure if he would have enough support to go racing full-time in 2024, and after 2 top 10 finishes, he now finds himself potentially 30 laps away from his second win with this team.
See if he can do it as he tries to hold off his friend, who will restart on the outside line with him. Into the Death Wish Coffee restart zone they come. 30 laps to go here at New River All-American Speedway. McCarty, Tyrell, Hall, and Kvapil surging towards the front of the field. Who gets back to win this one?
The edge goes to McCarty on the start, but he gets a little bit loose on the binders in turn 3 to protect the lead at the line. Connor Hall to the bottom of Mini Tyrell to try to go to second.
And if you're Connor Hall, you're in such a tough position. You can see Tyrell trying to hold Connor Hall at bay, keep him on the bottom. Don't allow him to perhaps look in the middle and try to make this a 3-wide move. So Tyrell clamping down for now on the 22 car to try to hold him back. But McCarty hanging on up top, but Kvapil, Hall, and Millington now challenging back there. They're the fastest cars on the racetrack.
And look who's starting to enter the frame on the right side of your picture. Trayton Lapsevich, 2023 NASCAR Canada champion for Chad Bryant Racing. And he is starting to float his way up towards a top 5 contending spot. All over the back of Millington as Kvapil ducks low.
McCarty able to find a couple of car links over this battle for second. Hall sliding up the racetrack, nearly gets into Mini Tyrell, and Tyrell holds him off. Again, it seems like it takes a couple of laps before this 81 car really gets hooked up after a restart. We saw it on the last one as well. He was able to fend off a challenge from Queen earlier, got a little bit of damage, and is still rolling and continuing to do that now. Meanwhile, this is Chad McCumbee, Landon Lewis, a couple of players who have worked their way up into the top 10 late in the going.
Lewis getting his second opportunity in that Kevin Harvick Incorporated number 62 after being an absolute standout in legend car competition, whether it be road course, asphalt, dirt, doesn't matter. Lewis also has an ARCA Menards Series win on the dirt at Springfield and 2 ARCA Menards West Series victories just last season. Trying his hand in late model stock cars, he's up into 8th as things run, as here's the battle for 5th between that of Millington and Lapsevich.
Millington, a little slide off the corner. That 77 fired off great after this latest restart. Hall and Kvapil still duking it out for that 3rd position. We saw them go toe-to-toe for a number of laps before being paused by the Shitty Coolers caution, but 23 laps to go. Last couple of laps, Mini Tyrell just a tick faster than Bobby McCarty up front.
The resiliency of that 81 car and driver is something that has been a standout already this season, but perhaps most importantly and noticeably this race as things tighten up for third. But Tyrell, despite the contact with Butterbean, being able to keep his head in the game and that car not falling off like we thought it would after the pace it showed early, still with a fighting chance at a victory as the battle for third is on.
Quapple and Hall not going to make it easy on each other as they nearly brush here through the tri-oval. 20 laps to go, and Quapple is trying to set sail if he could get by Connor Hall. Not going to make the job easy. Hall holds him off, a slide off the top, and perhaps a little bit of contact off of turn number 2. Hall still holding strong there on the top side, making that job difficult to complete that pass in Carson Quapple.
They're opening the door for Trayton Lapcevich in that 77 to start to close up a little bit. It's a 3-car race for third on back. Lapcevich, who has been very impressive to start his car's tour tenure and only his third ever race, as there's contact in front of him.
What nearly looked like it was 3 wide. Again, you can see the brake rotors glowing on nearly every one of these race cars at New River All-American Speedway. As the times we've fallen off isn't a lot. Quapple up the hill, 3 wide on the front stretch as Lapcevich almost thought about making a move. Connor Hall still holds on for third for the moment.
That gives Hall a chance to cover the bottom as Lapcevich starts to light up the back bumper of Carson Quapple for what is now a battle for fourth. Hall, though, can't keep it on the bottom of the racetrack. Lapcevich cuts to the bottom. He's got a fender inside of Carson Quapple in what's a race for fourth now in turn 1.
What a great crossover move as Lapcevich saw those two battling in front of them. He sets up his pass perfectly off of turn 4, and Quapple, whose car has not fared as well or quite as well in the middle as Hall in front of him. Now they go side by side as Lapcevich rolling in that Chad Bryant racing machine as they almost touch. Quapple nearly into the wall off at 2.
Lapcevich had that car all sorts of sideways as he got back to the gas off the second corner and nearly came across the left front fender of Carson Quapple as we flash back up to the lead. Bobby McCarty ahead of Mini Tyrell. Last time by, they were separated by just over a half a second as Tyrell's car appears to be stout. Can he get back to Bobby McCarty to contend for the win?
Back and forth these two drivers have gone in terms of pace. 2 laps ago it was McCarty that was faster. This past lap it was the 81 of Mini Tyrell. Up the road, a little bit of lap traffic may be something that Bobby McCarty has to worry about if this pace continues. But right now, 12 laps to go. McCarty trying to set sail, and again this time the pendulum continues to swing back and forth. McCarty runs just a tick faster than the 81 that last time by.
You mentioned Mini Tyrell came into the night second in championship points, all the while the driver in which he was chasing in the standings in that of Connor Hall. 7 markers back in the championship was that of Mini Tyrell. Hall runs just behind the 81 as things stand. And we talked about the hole in which Brendan Butterbean Queen felt he was climbing out of. Carson Quapple came into tonight's race 13th in the standings after winning Southern National and missing Hickory. He's got a good rebound run going right now in 5th with 10 to go.
The gap was once 7/10 of a second. It's now shrunk to about half a second. Tyrell made up a 10th that last time by. McCarty, as he looks to the lap traffic of Landon Huffman and goes on by. Remember, he led in this race early on, but you could see the result of pushing those tires just a little bit too hard. He lets the leaders race amongst themselves. Inside 10 laps to go. Now Connor Hall, don't forget about him. He's caught these two. He was nearly 2/10 faster that last lap.
And it appears that Tyrell may have caught the 37 at a precarious spot at the exit of turn 2. May have cost him some time. But you're right, Blake. Connor Hall has one of the fastest cars on the racetrack right now and is sliding up off turn 4 in third.
Still a 10th faster was Hall that last time by over Bobby McCarty, setting up to be a spectacular 3-way battle to the end here at New River All-American Speedway. Tyrell that last time, again, you can see in 3 and 4, Tyrell so good on the entry to the corner. He makes up some time. It's now 4.5 of a second separating your top 2, and Hall now a second back of Bobby McCarty.
You see the lap times by the leaders the last time through, left side of your picture, 5 to go. More traffic on the same sector of the racetrack as they come through the tri-oval. Mini Tyrell has had a stout piece tonight. Is it good enough to get up to and past three-time Cars Tour champion Bobby McCarty, who's looking for his second win with this race team? There's the traffic ahead, 4 to go.
Again, it's about 10 car lengths or so that you have the Logan Clark and the rest of this field. Tyrell was just a thousandth of a second faster than Bobby McCarty that last lap. Connor Hall is somewhat stabilized behind these top three, as you can see them catch the tail end of the lap traffic, 2 of which are RNS race cars.
And McCarty got really loose coming out of 4 that time. As soon as he got back to the power, the back end of that race car wanted to break traction. Here is McCarty inside of Logan Clark, another RNS race car teammate, as Tyrell closes to within 2 car lengths, 2 laps to go.
2 car lengths separate your top 2. Katie Hettinger, the last bit of lap traffic that these 2 will have to fend with. It's down to a car length off of turn 2. Tyrell catches the 71 in a precarious position, but they'll come around this time, 124 laps. This is the last one, white flag in the air. One more trip around New River All-American Speedway. Is it McCarty, Tyrell, or Connor Hall? McCarty with a car length over Tyrell into 3 and 4. A big send out of the 81, but it's not going to be enough. Bobby McCarty is back in Z-Max Cars Tour victory lane. He wins the National Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram 250 at New River.
And a congratulations from the runner-up in Mini Tyrell up to the outside of McCarty on the cool-down lap, as they were both swatting flies coming to the checkers. And for the second time with this organization, Bobby McCarty is going to Cookout Victory Lane after what was a resilient start to the season, missing the entire bit of front-end bodywork, being able to battle back for a top 10 finish after sustaining major damage in a restart stack-up, backed it up with a 6th place run at Hickory, and he is now celebrating in front of this capacity crowd as McCarty takes sole possession of 2nd on the all-time wins list with his 12th victory over his RNS race car teammate in Deke McCaskill.
As he comes around, he'll get the VP Racing Fuels checkered flag, and I think very fittingly so, saluting the race fans that, Eric, are lined up entirely around the grandstands and even outside of the grandstands, all the way where there is catch fencing at this racetrack. There are race fans who are lined up to salute Bobby McCarty, who could hardly contain himself as he took the checkered flag over his good friend in Mini Tyrell. RNS race cars, innovators, not duplicators. They showed why tonight.
We mentioned during the race the fact that this driver was not sure that enough supporters would be able to step up to allow him to come back and chase his 4th Cars Tour late model stock title. In the 11th hour, they got the deal together for him to come back here and run the full season for RNS race cars, and it took him only 3 races to get back to victory lane and interject himself into the title fight. Came into the ninth 4th in points, but this win is going to be a big boost of confidence en route to Orange County Speedway 1 week from tonight. As McCarty comes into victory lane, it is already an energetic scene, and James Pike is standing down there.
Mini Tyrell has already made his way over to congratulate Bobby McCarty, which I think is a pretty good indicator of the respect that not just Mini, but a lot of the drivers have in this series. And this is someone who, to the point that you just made, Eric, about not being sure he'd make it back to the track in 2024. I know there were a lot of people amongst the Z-Max Cars Tour community that wanted to see Bobby McCarty back in, multi-time series champion, one of the greatest drivers in the history of this series, and now back in victory lane for the first time since Dominion Raceway in June of last year. We all remember that incredible finish that he had with Brendan Queen and Carson Quapple. This was a different victory, I think, and I'll be curious to see what he says about it, but I have no doubt that he'll be just as excited as Carson Hellich gets in the window and gets ready to hand him the victory lane hat, the Hoosier neckband, and then Bobby McCarty will climb out to celebrate win number 2 with R&S race cars. I also have a good eye here to Marcus Richmond, and Marcus is, I think he's just as anxious as everybody else to see him hop out of the car, because I know how much they all love to celebrate how much that friendship between Bobby and Marcus was pivotal in getting Bobby into this ride at the beginning of 2023, as Bobby's looking for a little bit more something to drink, I think. Water bottle, perhaps. Might be a little bit thirsty after a run like that. So we'll see what happens. They're sort of telling him to just hang out with it and deal with it anyway. So here comes Bobby McCarty out of the car to celebrate the victory in Cookout Victory Lane, winner of the National Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram 125 at New River All-American Speedway in the ZMAX Cars Tour, and climbs out of this machine, reaches in for a few more things and all sorts of stuff. Anthony Goodyear here coming in to celebrate. Marcus Richmond in as well. All sorts of people, crew coming in, celebrating, everybody having fun here. Big love from everybody on this R&S Race Cars team. You know how much of a sort of family operation this is. Dean Haskell coming in as well to get stuff. Bobby, this is, I think, different, and you've been close to victory here over the past few times you've run here. So to get the victory on a night like this with a crowd like this, what's it mean to you to be back in victory lane?
I don't know, man.
Excuse me 1 second.
I honestly don't. My full-time crew chief is in Disneyland. Hey, Triplet, thank you for keeping my head on straight today, buddy. I really appreciate it. But thanks to Rob for stepping up. Rob stepped up as my crew chief today, and he did a really good job. Caleb, the whole crew, man, Marcus, Tracy. I got to thank Black Acid, Sterling Building Group, Caswell Glass, Bill Steens, David Triplett and Disney. This whole group, man, like I've been struggling and I've been questioning, you know, and Dominion we won, but that was just kind of a me and smarter deal versus faster, and to have the car and it finally to play off, man, I just don't know what to say.
We talked about the tire compound all afternoon. We've talked about it all day, all broadcast. Now that you've completed the 125 laps and you know what the SC2 is like around here, how much did you have to save? How much did you have to push? And how much did it compare to years past?
So, I mean, generally we're 2 seconds off the pace. We was about 1.5 seconds today. So at a place like this, you know, you're still going to save a lot of tires. It's inevitable. I don't care what kind of tire you build, you're going to have to save here. And not as much as before, but it is cooler, so the track has more just overall grip, so we don't really know the full deal. But again, man, everybody, David West, I mean, there's so many people that work on this car. Deke was working on it this morning. I mean, it's just a whole group, man, and I can't thank all these guys enough. I really can't.
And especially after the offseason you had where you weren't necessarily certain that this was going to be a thing. Spout got the whole thing there, but after the way that panned out, to be back here, does it make it a little bit sweeter than even Dominion maybe?
Oh, much better, man. Like I said, we had the car, and that was the biggest thing for me. Just like I said, we were smarter at Dominion, and we just brought a badass race car this weekend. We unloaded yesterday really good. We made really good changes, and we're back, man. Let's go.
How you going to celebrate?
I think we know that one. Beers with Bobby turn 1. Everybody's invited.
You heard it. Big time party for Bobby McCarty back in victory lane for the first time in 2024 in the ZMAX Cars Tour presented by Sound Gear.
Got an early start on that Beers with Bobby as well in victory lane. I was just about to say he's probably looking for another one.
I was going to say, Blake, good luck. I'm going to turn 1. Have fun the rest of the night. In all seriousness, though, what a story for that of Bobby McCarty. Again, 12th career win over that of Mini Tyrell, who has had a spectacular start to the season. Same can be said for that of Connor Hall. Trayton Lapsevich just keeps finding his way up into the top 5. And a great return for our 2-time and defending series champion, Carson Quapple. Back in action with the Cars Tour here at New River, rounds out the top 5.
How about Chad McCumbee? He has been running up front all season long. He does so again tonight in 6. Ryan Millington looked like he had a shot late in that race to perhaps challenge for the race win. He brings it home in 7. Landon Lewis, quiet night, hanging out around the top 10 and 8th. Andrew Grady, a much-needed run after a couple of DNFs early on, but he comes to a racetrack that he would almost kind of consider, maybe not in his backyard, but of the racetracks he's comfortable with. And then how about Isabella Robusto? Her first return nets a top 10 for her.
See there a couple of the other drivers on the second page of results with Kay Brown. Cody Dempster, another
Again.
great run there up towards the front. Dale Earnhardt Jr. with a good battle back night there in 14th spot. And we see some of the drivers who had some problems. Katie Hettinger went down a lap late. McCaskill struggled in the latter stages. Huffman, who led, I believe the box score will say the most laps. And then, of course, some of the cars that had to fall by the wayside there at the end, like that of Ronnie Bassett Jr. We have mentioned the tremendous start that Mini Tyrell has been off to so far in 2024. He wrestled his way to another strong finish. James is standing by with our second place driver in Mini Tyrell.
Mini Tyrell, when we talked earlier this afternoon, you said that the game plan was to try and get the track position early and stay there and make this a little bit different race from last week at Hickory. So how rewarding is it to, even though it seems sort of obvious to just accomplish the plan, but given how difficult this field is, how tough it is to be successful in this series, what's the sort of feeling of satisfaction like with the podium?
Oh, it's great, man. Definitely stings a little bit. I thought we had a really, really good car there, and I was able to get to Bobby a little bit earlier, and me and Brendan got together, I guess, getting into 3, and I got to watch it back. I don't know if I did something wrong or if it was just, racing hard up there. And I apologize if I did, if that ended their night. I feel bad. All those Leap Podium guys work really hard. But, I'm just proud of my team, man. I got a really good group of guys with me. Brandon Butler works so hard on this car. And Doug Strother and Dan and Colin, Brandon's son, comes and supports me. And I'm just so proud of how far we've come from last year to this year. We've made some big improvements and steps. And I think I've grown and matured a lot as a driver as well, and tried to really, evaluate what I can do to be a better race car driver. And, just really proud of the effort, man. It sucks to come up that one bit short, but at the end of the day, I can't knock on all my guys in that performance. So super cool. We're going to get us one here shortly. We just need to keep on battling up here.
Showing a little bit more of the potential that we saw in 2019 when he won the Series Rookie of the Year. These are more of the kinds of runs that I think we expected as we turn our attention to yet another good finish for you, Connor Hall, at a place that I know you like a lot. So how do you assess your evening, and what do you take away from this run tonight?
I mean, our qualifying performance was pretty lackluster, but we were just a little tight, and just kind of realized that this place, other than the bonus point, qualifying really doesn't matter. So we just I had my little come to Jesus moment in the hauler with my crew chief, and we just made sure that we had a good race strategy, and I think we really did run a good race. I wish we would have turned the middle just a little bit better, but we were so loose yesterday. Today was just kind of the tight, man your battle stations, get me to the tight side. So it was a good day. I really want to thank Autos by Nelson, Black's Tire, Castrol, Napa, Bassett Racing Wheels, DRP Performance Products, just so many people, Blue Ridge Color Company. I'm still learning a lot of them, but there's a lot of supporters that make this happen. We have Town Bank on the quarter panel. That's obviously a great feeling to merge the Nelson and Town Bank family together. So like I said, a big hats off to my guys. They absolutely worked their tail off. A big thank you to Barry Nelson for the opportunity to drive his race car.
If he's still finding his feet with Nelson Motorsports and he's putting up finishes like this, Eric and Blake, think of what's capable once he really gets used to this new team and this new car.